dangerous world we're in, and we need a strong Secretary of State in place. And so I hope the Democrats don't play politics with national security appointments, but instead confirm Mike Pompeo to this position.
That was Republican Texas Senator Ted Cruz with me yesterday, throwing his support behind President Trump's nominee for Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. In an interview on Fox News about 4 o'clock yesterday, Pompeo advanced yesterday with a favorable recommendation from the Senate Foreign Relations Committee after Republican Kentucky Senator Rand Paul changed his mind and his vote. Joining us now to talk more about that is former presidential candidate himself, former Republican Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee. Governor, good to see you, sir.
Good morning, Maria. Great to be with you today.
Are you surprised with what took place last night? Basically, Rand Paul saying, look, I had a conversation with the president. I believe now that Mike Pompeo agrees with the president and with me to lessen the entanglements across the world. What's your take?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, Rand Paul is a principled guy. There were some things he was uncomfortable with, but ultimately, you know, he came around. The second thing about it is when he's on your show later today, notice that his arm is in a cast. Donald Trump broke it, twisting it yesterday. But the point is, Mike Pompeo is going to be confirmed as Secretary of State. He should have made this just sliding through. This is an absurdity. If the Democrats want to pick some fights, this was a dumb one to pick, to go after somebody who has his pedigree, his experience, and frankly, already having sat down with North Korea and stands in a position to do some extraordinary things. They shouldn't fight everything, because then nothing they do has any credibility.
Yeah, let's not forget what he just did. He just went all the way to North Korea and met with Kim Jong-un. It's a good point, and I'm glad you brought it up, Tegan.
And one thing the Wall Street Journal editorial page points out, they call out Jeff Merkley, the Democrat from Oregon, saying that a vote for Mike Pompeo is a vote for Trump's war cabinet. Well, guess what? Mike Pompeo is nominated to be the chief diplomat. So how do you fight a potential war? It's with diplomacy. So I think that some of these senators need to go back to school a little bit on this. But it was a very important symbolic moment for the Republicans. You did not want to be, with the Republicans still in control of the Senate, the Republicans having the majority on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, 11-10, to be the first time since at least 1925 that the Secretary of State nominee didn't get a favorable vote coming out of Senate Foreign Relations. Yeah. It would have been a slap in the face of American people who voted for these Republican senators.
Especially with what's going on right now. You know, Governor, my favorite line from Lindsey Graham yesterday was, you might be sick of fighting with these extremists, but guess what? They're not tired of fighting with you. And so this is the reality that we face. That's what Lindsey Graham said yesterday. In other words, we've got to keep this up, and we've got to keep the troops in Syria over the near term, because they're not tired of fighting with us.
There are a lot of Republicans who are not that fond of Donald Trump, and I get that. But they've got to remember that under the Constitution, when he's elected president, he has every right to pick his own cabinet and staff. And unless they can find something morally objectionable or outrageously unacceptable, they should give a president the people that he wants to be in his cabinet. The Republicans did that for John Kerry, for Hillary Clinton. I doubt that a lot of them who voted, 94, by the way, votes in the Senate on both Kerry and Clinton. I'm sure there were a lot of Republicans who held their nose and did it, but they looked at the Constitution and they said, whether we like it or not, Obama's president. He has a right to pick his Secretary of State. I just don't understand how these Democrats look into a camera, which they love to do, but look into a camera and explain, oh, Mike Pompeo, I can't vote for him because he has views about same-sex marriage or maybe views about abortion, which has nothing to do with being Secretary of State. That's an absurdity, and I think they have embarrassed themselves.
There are 3 Democrat senators who've come out and said that they will vote in favor of Mike Pompeo to be the Secretary of State. And correct me if I'm wrong, Heidi Heitkamp, Joe Manchin in West Virginia, and then Joe Donnelly. So those are the 3 so far.
But, Governor, you do have at least 4 who voted to confirm him as director of CIA who said they will not vote for him for this position. And I think you hit it exactly right. They're talking about issues that have nothing to do with foreign policy, the job of a Secretary of State. How do you defend the critique of Pompeo on those grounds when that has nothing to do with his job?
Well, again, it's just a stretch. They don't have anything, so they make something up. They'd be better off bringing James Taylor into the Senate chamber and let him sing "You've Got a Friend" and all have a big bear hug. That would make a lot more sense in what they're doing. I think they're hurting themselves for the midterms, but as somebody who hopes Republicans hangs on to both houses, I can only hope that they continue to act this foolishly when it comes to the president's appointments, especially in light of the fact that he's got this extraordinary relationship with the president of France. Yeah. He's got North Korea coming to the table. Those are some pretty big things happening right now on the national security front.
Yeah, really big things, actually. Well, let me turn to border security, Governor. A caravan of hundreds of Central American migrants arriving at the U.S. border. The pictures are incredible. President Trump tweeted on the matter yesterday. Here's what he wrote. Despite the Democrat-inspired laws on sanctuary cities and the border being so bad and one-sided, I have instructed the Secretary of Homeland Security not to let these large caravans of people into our country. It is a disgrace. We are the only country in the world so naive. Wall. Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen issued a statement reinforcing U.S. immigration law. She said, if you enter the United States illegally, let me be clear, you have broken the law, and we will enforce the law through prosecution of illegal border crossers. Governor, your take on this?
That's no doubt that one of the big reasons Donald Trump is sitting in the White House today is because of his position on immigration. It's not that Americans are anti-immigrant. But what they are is they're anti-breaking the law and getting away with it. And they're tired of it. And what they want is, if there are people who legitimately need asylum, Americans have big hearts. They understand. But they're not willing to just open the gates and say, come on in, everybody. We've got benefits, including welfare and medical care. That's just not where this country is right now. And it frankly shouldn't be. We have no idea who the people are in those caravans. So they've got to be vetted. They've got to be carefully screened. And that's what the president's asking for. But it's what the American people demand.
Yeah, Governor, do you think we'll get anything done when it comes to immigration policy this year, vis-a-vis DACA or any other plans?
We could if the Democrats really believed in it, but they don't, and they've shown they don't. The president laid more on the table than I ever thought he would lay on the table, more than any Republican ever wanted to lay on the table. But he did it, basically, I think, to say we're not against immigration reform. We're just wanting to do it in the context of law. And the Democrats walked away from going this point of saying this is the most important thing we have to deal with and the deadline is looming to, oh, never mind. I'm just amazed that they can do this with such a crass, just indifference to the causes they claim to champion. They really don't stand for anything.
All right, we will leave it there. Governor, good to see you, sir. Thanks so much for weighing in.
Thank you. Good to talk to you, Maria.
Mike Huckabee joining us there.